Okay. Good morning. We'll begin the class lying down on our back and getting into a position that feels relaxing, feels grounding. Feel the different points of contact between your body and the mat. Closing the eyes when you feel ready. Starting to feel settled. Getting those movements, this fidgety shuffling out of the way so you can find stillness. Once you have your eyes closed, you're in a relaxed, still position. Take a moment to scan your body and see if you can release any obvious tension that stands out. Perhaps getting into the habit of scanning your body throughout the day and noticing if there's any habitual tension that you tend to hold on to. Could be around the eyes, around the jaw, shoulders, sometimes even the belly, the hips. See if you can get into the habit of just releasing and using your exhales to release tension from the body. And breathing in to create awareness, to create space. Breathing out tension, letting yourself settle into that space. Allow your awareness to come to rest on your breathing. As you find a rhythm for your breath that feels natural. Taking in your breathing with as many of your senses as you can. Using your skin to feel the air traveling in through the nose. Feeling the movement that happens with each breath, the expansion of the chest, and the softening as you breathe out. Listening to the sound that your breathing makes. Again, letting your breathing feel effortless. Just observing, not changing. As you take this time to connect with your breathing, letting go of any thoughts from the past, letting go of any thoughts about the future. And finding yourself in the here and now. You are one with your body, one with your breath, and one with the mind. Letting your awareness drift down into the body, into the rib cage. Continue to feel the sensations of each breath. Letting the air travel freely inside the body. If you find your thoughts wandering off, as they sometimes do, gently guide them back to your breath. And begin again. Each time you come back to your breath, your ability to stay present gets a little bit stronger. Continue to strengthen that habit muscle whenever you can, during the practice, throughout your day. Just coming back to your breath. This constant companion that keeps us rooted in the present moment. Keeps us grounded into our bodies, connected to the earth. Keeping that in mind, let's start to find small movements for the fingers and toes. Start to wake up your body. Waking your body from the outside towards the center. Reaching the arms up overhead, sliding your feet together as you point the toes, bringing the palms together. Let's stretch the fingers and toes in opposite directions. Maybe interlace the fingers together. Lengthen through the entire body as you breathe in and relaxing as you breathe out. This morning stretch for the body a couple more times, breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth. Letting out a sigh or a sound that feels good. From here, lifting your right leg as you inhale, bending your knee, bringing the fingers together around the shin. Start to squeeze the thigh into your chest. Breathing here as you flex both ankle and toes, keeping that left leg nice and strong, rooted down to the mat as you pull the right knee towards your chest. Continue breathing. Noticing any tightness you might be feeling in that right hip flexor, right at the base of the hip. See if you can breathe into those muscles. Try and relax them. From here, we're going to take the knee into the left hand, pull it across the body over to the left side. As you stretch your right arm beside you, you can look up to the ceiling. You can look towards your outstretched right hand as you find a twist for the lower half of the body. Let your right sit bone stack over the left, using that left hand to pull the knee closer to the ground beside you, keeping the shoulders grounded on the mat. Breathing into this twist as you stretch across your lat muscles, your obliques, into the glutes, the IT bands. On the next breath in, pulling your knee back to center. Let's take it into the right hand. We're going to lower the knee down to the right side, placing your left hand on top of the left hip flexor. Gentle pressure down here, keeping both sit bones grounded, keeping that left leg nice and strong as your right hip opens. Feel that stretch through the inner thigh muscles, maybe even the glutes and the outer thigh muscles. And you can use that right hand for support underneath the leg, or maybe a little bit of gentle pressure on top of the leg, depending on what you need in this moment. Noticing that left sit bone, if it starts to lift off the mat, bring it back down so both of your sit bones stay grounded. The pelvis stays level, keeping that alignment as you find the stretch on the right side through the inner thigh, the adductor muscles stretching. And let's inhale, pull that knee back to center. Let's pull it into the chest once and maybe out towards the armpit. Then bring that leg back to neutral, hands together around the back of the thighs. You start to push up through that right heel, really keeping your lower back and that left leg rooted down to the mat as you flex the ankle and toes down towards the face. Pushing up through the right heel and trying to get the stretch to travel down the leg through the calf and hamstring muscles all the way to your hip. You can use the hands here to pull the thigh towards your chest at the same time as well. Just notice if your left leg starts to lift off, keep it grounded, keep that lower back pressed down, keep flexing the ankle and toes down towards the knee and face. Breathing into the stretch. Let's do a couple of ankle rotations here as well, rotating the ankle, drawing circles with your big toe. Rotating in both directions. Let's bring that ankle back to neutral. Bend the knee once again, fingers together around the shin, pull that thigh in, and let's take it even further towards your right armpit this time, getting that hip to open externally. Keeping that left leg strong, rooted. And let's bring that knee back to center, keeping your knee bent, plant the foot on the mat. With your foot firmly planted down, arms resting beside the body. Let's touch the right heel with your right fingertips. We're going to point the left ankle and toes this time. And we're going to push down through the right foot, push down through your hands and lift your seat. Lift that left leg up at the same time, finding strength here, rooting down through the grounding leg, lifting up into your hips, pushing down to your hands, the back of the head and shoulders, lifting the chest, and try to lift the hips up as much as you can here, finding strength, activating into the glutes, the hamstring muscles, keeping your pelvis level, core is active here, lengthening your tailbone up and away, breathing here, 3, 2, and 1, easing your spine and seat onto the mat. As your left leg comes down, go ahead and straighten out the right leg. Let's take your feet mat width distance to do a quick little rotation for the hips. Rotating your thigh bones where they insert into the pelvis, externally and internally. Notice on the internal rotation where your toes are coming closer towards each other. Notice if the back of the knees want to lift off. And if they do, if one side is more than the other, that's usually an indication that your hip flexors are a little bit tighter. The muscles that are on the outer part of the thighs, your glute medius, the IT bands. So if that's where you feel this a little bit more, the knees lifting off, then that's an area to focus on for your practice. Let's bring the feet back together. On an inhale, we're going to lift that left leg, bending the knee, fingers coming together on the left shin, flexing your ankle and toes, and pulling the thigh in towards your chest. Back of the head, back of the shoulders, stay grounded on the mat as well. Keeping your spine supported, just breathing. With every exhale, feel your thigh coming a little closer to the chest, releasing those hip flexor muscles. You might even feel the stretch in the back of the thigh as well. And we're going to take the knee into the right hand, pull it across the body as you stretch your left arm beside you. With your left knee going across the body, pulling it down closer to the ground. Left sit bone stacks over the right, looking past the left hand, keeping the shoulders on the mat. And breathing into your twist. And see if in your mind's eye you can find your hip socket where the thigh bone inserts into that ball and socket joint, and let your breath travel into that joint. With the inhale, creating space, and with the exhale, settling into that space. On an inhale, bring the knee back to center. Let's take it into the left hand. Right hand pressing down on the right hip, keeping those hip bones grounded as your left knee opens out to the side, finding your variation that feels best. Keeping your right ankle and toes flexed. Keeping that entire leg strong and rooted all the way to the sit bone. And try changing the angle of your left hip as well. You can pull the knee a little further up, closer to your torso, and you can take the knee a little further away from the torso, and just notice how that slight shift in the angle of the hip can really change the experience and change where and how intensely you feel the stretch. So find what feels optimal for you. Again, listening to your breath, keeping your muscles in the face relaxed. Inhale to pull that knee back to center. Bring the fingers together around the shin, pull the knee into the chest, take it towards your armpit, just opening out that hip a little bit. Then bring that knee back to center, hands slide down to the back of your thigh, fingers coming together as you push that left heel up. Activation through the arms as you pull the thigh closer towards you, and activation through the back of the leg as you flex up into the ankle and toes. Push through the heel. Using your body's counter strength to intensify the stretch a little bit. So as you push up through the heel, your thigh is trying to move away from you, but at the same time, you're using your hands and arms to pull the thigh towards you, and that counter resistance just helps to deepen the stretch a little bit, making sure that right leg stays grounded, your lower back is still on the mat. You're also flexing your tibialis, the front of the shin here, and getting that muscle to strengthen. Adds a lot of stability for when you walk, stand, run. And then relaxing the ankle and drawing circles in the ceiling with it. Rotating your ankle in both directions. Let's bring that leg back to neutral, bending your knee, fingers coming together around the shin, pull the thigh into your chest and then out, taking the knee towards your left armpit. Then bring that hip back to neutral, planting the foot on the mat, arms rest beside the body, touching your left heel with your left fingers. Bring a strong point into your right toes. So you want to feel that whole right leg connected, one active unit that's connected to the hip. As you push down through your hands, push down through the left leg, drive the hips up, keeping your knees next to each other so your pelvis is level here. I'm not trying to lift that right leg any higher than it needs to go. Just keeping the knees level, the hips level, and really finding strength into that rooting left leg. And the idea here is to not only stretch the muscles out, but also it helps strengthen them so that you're load bearing into a muscle, building strength, but also stretching those muscles. Maintain that balance that the muscles need between stretching and strengthening at all times. Stay with the breath. See if you can lift your chest and hips a little bit higher. Really root down through that left foot. Breathe. 3, 2, and 1. Easing your spine, seat onto the mat. Right leg comes down, straighten out the left leg. Take the feet mat width distance. Just rotate the hips. Again, this is just to ease the tension out of the muscles after you've contracted them in a fixed position. Getting some movement to help open them out. Beautiful. Let's lift the knees. Plant the feet down. And from here, bring the hands to the back of your thighs. As you lift the feet up once again, straighten the legs up towards the ceiling. Here's where I really want you to bring in awareness into your lower back. So keeping the lower back firmly pressed down into the mat, continue pushing up through the heels, using your hands to pull the thighs towards you. And as soon as you start to feel your tailbone lift off, bring it right back down, and then continue straightening the legs up. So you want to feel as if you're in a right angle from the spine into the legs. So this is much like Dandasana, when we sit on our mat with our legs straight and our spine lifted, except we're on our back here. So really just breathe into the stretch. Beautiful. From here, we're going to bend the knees. So you're going to feel the back of your thighs relax a little bit, bending the knees, keeping the knees stacked on top of your hips here. We're going to come into a pose to really challenge the core and challenge the whole midsection really. So the core is not just the front, it's also the back, it's the trunk that is the band around the lower part of the torso, which connects your hips and your thighs together. Hands up and alternating one leg straightening and one hand going back. So starting with your left leg straightening, right arm goes back and then come back. And then right leg straightens, left arm goes back. Now, as you find this movement, keep your awareness into that small of your lower back, that lumbar spine here. See if it starts to lift off at any point and keep it grounded. So you really want to find as much stability through the midsection here as you can. And really keeping those muscles strong and active throughout this movement, throughout the whole range of motion. And going as far into this range of motion as you can without letting your lower back lift off, without feeling like your hips or your pelvis is going out of alignment. Continue with your breath as you stretch the leg and take the arm back. Inhale, exhale as you bring everything back in. And just notice which muscles perhaps are starting to fatigue a little bit here. Notice where you might start to feel like those muscles maybe are starting to lose a bit of control. Just a couple more times, we're gonna go each side. We started with the right arm, left leg. So whenever you finish with the right leg, left arm, pause. From here, bringing your feet down onto the mat, let the arms rest beside you, finding your bridge position, tickle the heels with your fingers, drive down through your feet, push up through your hips and chest, and we're gonna roll the shoulders underneath this time. As you push down through your arms, push down through the head, and finding a stretch through the back of your neck all the way through, lengthening into your tailbone, lifting your hips up high, driving down through the feet, lifting up into your chest. Pressing down through your hands, through the arms, shoulders. Breathing here, see if you can lift the hips even higher. And then start to release your fingers, releasing your seat and spine onto the mat. From here, we're going to turn onto one side, planting one hand down and coming up, transitioning from here onto your mat into a tabletop shape. Fingers are spread, palms are flat, shoulders stacked over your wrists, hips over knees, setting up into your cat and cow as you exhale the air from the body. Inhale to start arching the low back, draw the belly down, pulling the shoulders away, looking forward or up. And exhale, tucking the tailbone down to the mat, rounding through your spine, bringing the chin to the chest. Whew. Inhaling, finding that back bend, articulating the movement through each vertebrae. Feel that wave traveling through your spine. Finding your spinal flexion and extension. We'll come into our cat back, our rounded back shape, and just hold that for a few moments. You're really trying to bring your chin right into the chest, tucking your tailbone down towards the mat and pushing the earth away with your hands, filling up into your back body as much as you can. Feel the lower belly button pulling right up into the spine, and breathe here. Just hold that rounded back. And in that shape, start to rock side to side. Pushing out into your rib cage, into the sides of your rib cage, trying to unlock some movement in your thoracic spine. The part of the spine that's connected to the rib cage. And come back to center, relaxing out of your rounded back. From here, we're going to lower down onto our forearms, hips stay on top of the knees. Let's walk your forearms away from the body, coming into puppy dog pose as you rest your forehead on the mat. Let your chest melt through, let your tailbone point up and away. If you want a more intense stretch here, you can bring your chin on the mat. Just make sure it doesn't add any pain or compression into your neck. The idea is to stretch through the armpits, stretching into the front of the rib cage, pressing down through your palms, start to lift your chin or forehead up, drive your chest forward. And we're going to transition from here into a plank pose, stepping your feet back, bringing your palms together, interlace the fingers, tucking one pinky, and finding strength in your postural muscles. So holding that strength. Some of our muscles respond more to fast movement, dynamic, explosive movements, but our postural muscles, the ones that help support us when we're standing, sitting, and keeping us upright, those muscles respond to slow, endurance-based exercises. So plank is great for that, where you're really trying to hold this shape and keep strength in the whole body. So not just your midsection, but the back of your legs are lifting up, your whole thighs are active, you're pressing down through your hands, you're full in the upper back, not collapsing down through the chest. Your head is level with your shoulders, and really maintaining that strength through the whole body. And breathing. Again, start to notice which muscles are fatiguing. Maybe it's the shoulders, maybe it's a midsection, maybe it's your legs. Doesn't matter which muscles are fatiguing, but just good to have awareness of any possible imbalances in the body. Areas to maybe focus a little bit more on in your practice, on and off the mat. We're going to start to lower down the hips and knees here. Whew. Point through your toes, separating your hands, and transitioning into Sphinx Pose as your shoulders pull down the back, pressing down through your hips and tops of your feet. Shift the gaze forward, maybe up to the ceiling as you draw the shoulders down the back, broaden through the collarbones. Breathing into the belly. From here on the next exhale, we're going to look past the right shoulder towards the back right corner of the mat. And then inhale, come back to center. On the exhale, looking past your left shoulder towards the back left corner of the mat. Keep breathing as you move. Inhale to center, exhale to find that movement for the top part of your spine, the cervical spine. We started on the right side. We'll do one more time for each side. As you come back to center, let's bring the palms together. One more plank pose, interlacing the fingers together, tucking your pinky in, pushing down through your palms, your fists, forearms, lifting your hips and thighs up, driving back through the heels, driving forward through the head, and activating through the whole body here. And let's bring awareness to your pelvis here as well. There's a couple of things that sometimes we do to make this pose slightly easier. One is we arch the low back up and try to lift the hips up higher. The other is we really just let the hips sag. And you want to try to find that Goldilocks middle here, where your pelvis feels level. Your tailbone is lengthening back. So it's not pointing down, it's not pointing up, but it's reaching back towards your heels. And your belly button is pulling up into the into your spine. So you're kind of flattening across the low belly here. Breathing for another 3, push into your forearms, stay full in the upper mid back. 2, and 1, relaxing. Whew. Nice work. Bring the hands onto the mat. We're gonna lift up from here. Toes are tucked under, hips over the knees. Knees are hip width distance apart, rising up here. Let's bring your palms and forearms together. So here, your palms, your forearms are together. And the elbows are at shoulder height. Feet are hip width distance behind the body. Toes are tucked under to keep us balanced. From here, I'm going to start to lift the elbows away from the body, starting to come into a back bend as I lift my chest and arch my low back. And then come into a neutral spine as you bring your elbows back down. Let's do that 2 more times, lifting the elbows up. So rather than thinking about lifting your fingers up, think about lifting the elbows up and away from the body as you lift into the chest and really stretch and spread across the upper and mid back. Come back, and let's keep that low back nice and neutral as you lift up again. So not so much of a back bend, just more trying to lift the elbows away from you and getting your mid back to open up. Nice, come back. And now we're gonna keep the elbows at that same height, but just open up the chest. So opening the arms, letting your chest open as your elbows go back. Try to keep moving the elbows further back behind you to open across the front of the chest. Not letting your chest puff out, not letting your spine arch, but really maintaining that strength, that activation through the whole midsection. Breathing 3, 2, and 1. Come back. From here, one foot, your right foot drives forward, fingers come together onto the right thigh, maybe creating a little bit more space in your low lunge by dragging that back knee a little further away. And then sinking deep into this position, letting your pelvis drop below that front knee, letting your shoulders relax. And press into the front foot, come back, switch legs, swinging that right leg back and the left foot forward, and then driving back into your lunge. Again, this is to stretch the front of your thighs, the quads, the hip flexors. Allow yourself to sink as deep into this pose as you can. So taking that space between the front foot and the back knee and taking that space a little farther apart if you need to, so you have that room for the pelvis to dip down. And we push through that front foot to come back, sliding your left foot. Now from here, we're going to come into a standing position, and you're welcome to transition into that however you want to. If you want to have a little bit of fun with your toes tucked under, you can come into, actually before you come to stand, let's do a bit of a stretch for our toes here. So with your toes tucked under like this, let your seat come to rest on the back of the shins and heels. And then you can use your hands for a bit of support here. So you can reach down, find your fingers onto the mat, and then lift the knees up and bring your heels closer to the ground, and then bring the knees back onto the mat. So just lifting the knees back and forth. It's okay to have a little bit of rounding happening through the spine here, but try not to hunch too much. Try to keep your chest relatively lifted. And if you're comfortable, you can also not use the hands and just lift the knees and find that balance, find that stretch. From here, we'll come to standing. So if you want to, you can just take this stretch a little further as you bring your heels down, push up through the heels, come to standing. Beautiful. From standing position, feet are hip width distance apart. We're going to inhale the arms up, palms come together, look through the hands, fingers touch. Inhale to reach the fingers a little higher, really opening up into your torso here. And then exhale as you hinge from the hips, diving forward all the way down into a forward fold. Knees are slightly bent, maybe grabbing onto opposite elbows, rocking your torso side to side, stretching into the low back, glutes. Releasing the head and neck, decompressing your spine. Maybe trying to straighten the legs slowly, lifting the seat up higher while the head reaches down towards the floor. And try to find length in the torso here as well. So you're trying to lift the torso out of the hips. If you're rocking side to side, come back to center. And we're going to do a couple of spinal rolls here. So I'd like you to let your arms just dangle, let your head be heavy. The shoulders will stay rounded. And in your spinal roll, you're going to push down through the feet and start to rebuild the spine from the bottom up. And see if you can really visualize your spine stacking, each vertebrae coming on top of the other as you slowly come out of your forward fold into a standing upright position. Once you're here, on an inhale, lift the head, lift the chest, and take your spine into a little bit of extension here. And then come back, chin comes down into your chest, coming back into your spinal flexion, shoulders round, and then start to unstack your spine, just like we stacked it. Unstack it slowly, rolling down into your forward fold. And then notice perhaps if there's a particular point in this movement where you start to feel like your torso is just getting too heavy for you to carry. And from there, you can go a little faster, maybe use the support of your hands against the knees to take some of the load off of your legs and lower back. Awesome. Once you're all the way down into your spinal roll, we're going to do a little stretch for the back of the shoulders, the rhomboid muscle. So I'll start with my left hand first. I'm going to reach my left hand across the body towards my right heel. So left hand across the body towards the right heel. From here, I'm going to lift my right heel off the mat, and I'm going to grab underneath the heel. So I'm going to try to grab the bottom of the heel and then bring that heel down. Now you can bend the knees as much as you need to here, but keep your feet hip width distance apart so you're keeping yourself in a nice balanced position. Once you have your hand reaching across the body, grabbing the back of the ankle, you can take that right hand, you can bring it up into your hip, you can take it around the back into a hip flexor. It really doesn't matter what you do with your right hand so much here. It's more about your left hand or right foot connection. Once you have this connection, try to really pull up with your left hand and see if you can pull the heel off the body. Now, we're not going to let that happen because you're pushing down through your feet at the same time. But what we're trying to do here is get a stretch through the back of the left shoulder into the rhomboid muscles. So the rhomboid muscles are what pull your shoulder blades together, the scapula together, and we're trying to stretch those muscles out. So you're trying to pull up through your left hand while you're driving down through the right heel. And If you want to have a bit of a twist here as well, you can open the chest to the side, but really just focus on trying to pull up into the left hand, push down through the right heel. And you start to feel the stretch right away as well. Not a muscle that gets stretched very often. All right, easing out of this one. And we're going to switch to the other side. So taking that right hand, reach it across to the left heel. As you lift that heel up, grab the heel, and then bring the heel back onto the ground. And then left hand can go where it feels best. Start to pull up through the right hand, drive down through your heel. Again, you can start with your knees as bent as you need to. But once you start to find some comfort here, feel free to try to lift the seat up higher, straightening out the legs a little bit. Whew. Wow, this is intense. Keep pulling up through that right hand. Really nice work. Stretching into the rhomboids, the rear deltoid muscles. Trying to keep your spine long here as well. Breathe here. 3, 2, and 1. Releasing. Bring the hands down in front of you. One more spinal roll up. Pushing through your feet. Start to straighten up your spine. Beautiful. Once you're all the way at the top, adding your spinal extension, lifting up into the chest, looking up, breathe in. And breathe out, neutral spine. If you want to grab a sip of water, take a quick second to shake off your legs, your arms, if anything feels fatigued. Wow, I'm sweating. Awesome. I hope you are as well. We're going to come to stand at the top of the mat. Feet are hip width distance apart. Take a few moments just to come back to that nice easy breath here. Your breath going down into the belly. Finding your feet on the mat once more. And think about those postural muscles that we were strengthening in our plank. And see if you can find activation for those muscles here. So the muscles around the trunk, the midsection, muscles in your legs. Feeling your chest open, shoulders relax, arms are heavy. Maybe just closing the eyes for a few moments. And notice how the experience of the pose can change once you close your eyes, requiring a little bit more effort, perhaps, in maintaining that balance. Maybe noticing your weight waver from side to side, or maybe it stays exactly the same. Beautiful. And if you feel comfortable with your eyes closed through that next little bit, you can do that. If not, you can open your eyes at any time. All right. As you inhale from here, reach the arms up, stretch up long through the fingertips, shift the gaze to the ceiling, even if the eyes are closed. And on the exhale, hinge from the hips, folding forward. Take a nice swan dive all the way down, forward bend. Inhale, come up halfway, hands on shins, flat back, grip the mat with your toes. On the exhale, plant the palms, transition from here into your high plank, stepping your feet back. And let's open the eyes here, if they're not already. Shoulders over the wrist, look back, heels over toes. We're gonna transition from here into a back bend. So let's just start with the knees on the mat, point through the toes. And as your hips sink down, roll the shoulders back and lift into the chest. Again, my elbows bend a little bit here, so I'm taking some of the pressure off the low back. My shoulders are in front of the wrist slightly, so I'm not putting pressure on my low back. Something to be mindful of here. As you open the chest, if you want to add some more activation, start to push it through the tops of the feet, lifting your knees, lifting the tops of your thighs off the mat, and then really opening into the chest and try to pull your torso through the arms, breathing here. On the next exhale, lifting up into your seat, tucking your toes under, transitioning to downward facing dog, looking through your thighs as you push the earth away. Feel the chest moving towards your thighs, lifting your seat up higher. Let's pedal the feet, reach the heels down one at a time. Beautiful. Let's bring our hips level, feet still. Inhale, lifting up the right leg as high as you can. Three-legged dog. On the exhale, bending and you swinging your leg forward as your foot reaches in between the hands. Take your time to complete that transition, keeping your back knee on or off the mat. On an inhale here, let's come into a high lunge. As you bring your torso on top of the hips, reaching up through your arms, reaching up through the fingertips, straight arms, draw the shoulders down the back. Finding your balance here, taking your time to complete the transitions, and then we twist. We bring the left arm in the front, the right arm goes back as you twist into the torso. Your hips still face forward, scissoring into the thighs, and we're opening into the chest. From here to go a little bit further, taking that right hand back, left arm going up and over. And then come back. Now you can have a little bit more fun. So coming back into your Revolve Warrior, this time if you want, you can have your back knee slightly more bent, and you can even reach that hand down onto the calf and hold this slightly more challenging position. As you still maintain that twist, keep reaching your left fingers up and over. And if you want to get a little bit more, you can walk that hand back towards the heel. You can bring that knee onto the mat if it's up, and then fingers together forward on the right thigh. From here, bring both hands on the inside of your right foot. We're going to take that foot over to the right edge of the mat, pointing the toes out 45 degrees, and then start to rotate the hip externally. Come onto the outer edge of your foot. As your hip opens out to the side, you can lower down onto your forearms. Whew. Grabbing a block here if needed, something to elevate you a little bit if your forearms feel like they're too far away from the ground. Option to take the back knee off the mat as well if you want to add a little bit of strength. The main focus of this pose really is to rotate this right leg, the right hip externally, opening up into the right side and flexing the ankle and toes on that foot. Everything else is optional. Try not to collapse into your chest here either, so stay nice and lifted whenever you can. Easy breath, slowing it down. Anytime you're with the hips, slow it down. And allow yourself to just go a little deeper into the pose once you've softened, once you've slowed it down. From here, we're going to start to press into the hands and come back. Heel toe that right foot down the side of the mat. Bring it into the center, keeping that foot firmly planted. We're going to transition from here to a side plank. So take your option here. You can have your hand on the mat. You can have your forearm on the mat. Tuck your back toes under. Lift that knee off the mat and then transition to the outer edge of your back foot. Now there's lots of options for your side plank. We're going to start off with this one here with you on your forearm with that foot planted. If you want to go further, again, I mentioned you can come onto the hand. That's one variation. The other is to stack your feet, reach up through that top arm. You can also lift that top leg if you want to. The focus really here is to find strength in your oblique muscles here to really activate through the side and keeping your hips level. So not letting your hips sag here, but keeping them level with the rest of the body. Now, from wherever you are, start to transition towards your high plank. Complete that transition in however many steps as you need to. Now, if you want to throw in a Chaturanga here, you can. On an exhale, bend the elbows. Inhale, shift the weight forward, lift the chest up. And exhale, lift up into your seat. Looking back through your thighs, downward facing dog. So let's switch sides so I can see you on that side as well. Beautiful. Inhale. And driving that left leg up as high as you can. Pushing the right heel down. On the exhale, bend the knees, swing that leg forward. Foot reaching between the hands. Take your time, find your balance, scissor into the hips here, finding activation through the legs, back knee on or off the mat as you lift up into the torso, reaching up through the arms, fingers spread and pointing up to the ceiling. Having some activation here in your hands. Draw the shoulders down the back and then finding your twist. Right arm in front, left arm back. So we'll start off here. Once you're okay, take that left hand to the back leg, maybe bring it around the back as your right hand reaches up. Breathing here. And then come back, stretching into the hands. Now, if you want to go a little further, bend that back knee closer to the ground, and you can even drop the back hand onto the calf. Now, notice my knee's actually not touching the ground right now, it's just hovering. And you can have it up slightly if you feel that's more accessible. This is just a variation to challenge balance, challenge the strength in the legs a bit more, and also just to get a deeper opening through the front body as well. Bringing that back knee down and then easing your way out of the pose, both hands on the inside of the left foot. From here, we take that left foot over to the edge of the mat, pointing the toes out 45 degrees. And then as your knee starts to open out to the side, flex the ankle and toes. Feel free to stay here or come on down to your forearms. Coming back to that relaxed breath. And each time you come back to your breathing and consciously slow it down, just see if you can become aware of the effects that that practice has on your body. Just notice how that maybe changes how you feel. Getting into the habit of perceiving the subtle shifts that happen in our physiology and our experience of our inner selves when we change these variables of breath, awareness. Pressing into the hands, starting to come out of the lower position. From here, we take that left foot, heel toe it down towards the center of the mat. Same sequence, just the other side. We're going to set up for a side plank. Start off wherever you want to, end up wherever you want to. You're welcome to cycle your way through the different variations and find one that feels best for you. There's never any right or wrong. There's never any pressure even to do the same variation that you've done maybe for the last few times. If you feel like today, maybe the wrist is not feeling that happy here, it's okay to drop down to the forearm. We are going to start to transition into plank. From your plank, choosing your own variations all the way to downward dog. Skipping chaturanga is always an option. Lifting your seat, tucking the toes, coming into downward dog. On an inhale, reach up through your right leg, bend the knee, and then rotate the hip, stacking that right hip over the left, keeping the shoulders side by side. Keep reaching that right knee higher as you rotate the hip further and further externally, driving your left heel down. On an inhale, square the hip, and as you exhale, swing that leg forward, bring the foot onto the mat between the hands. Ground the back knee, and this time let's heel toe that right foot over to the left edge of the mat, and we're going to bring your right hip down. Awesome. Back knee is bent, resting on the mat. The front knee is bent. You want that front shin to be parallel to the top edge of your mat. Hands supporting you on either side of the mat, staying nice and upright. We're going to go back and forth here. Maintain that long spine as you find your way through this range of motion. Keeping your knees grounded. Well, it feels like I'm back in hot yoga again. Whew. Awesome. Once you've gone through this range of motion a little bit, felt your hips loosen up, let's hang out at what feels like a neutral position, okay? Now we're going to bring our hands around that front foot. And what I really want you to focus on here is not worrying so much about how close your head or chin gets to that foot. more so how much space and how much length you can keep in your spine as you go into this stretch. So really focusing on, again, lifting your torso out of the hips, maintaining that space as you hinge forward and then go into this stretch. You can bring the fingers together around the bottom of the foot just to give you a little bit more grip to pull, and then reaching and really looking to lengthen into your spine, lengthen through the low back as you reach your forehead, your chin forward, and you start to feel the stretch into your glute muscles, the IT bands, maybe where your lower back and glutes connect. But all the way through, keep looking to lift the chest and reach forward as opposed to rounding and going down. Think forward and slightly up. Again, just stay with your breath. And we start to release out of the stretch as you inhale, press into your fingertips, lift back, come back to that starting neutral position. We're going to focus on that back leg here, finding that rotation, the internal rotation for the back leg. So your glute medius muscles activate, and we try to lift the heel off the ground, just a couple of inches. So come back to neutral, using your hands for support. You're going to drive that knee down into the mat. As you do that, your hip rotates internally, and the back foot lifts off. And the focus for this exercise is really just in this part of your body here, the glute medius muscles, and trying to get them to strengthen, try to get them to activate. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, you want to stretch the muscles out that are feeling tight, but sometimes it's not a matter of just stretching and having more flexibility. Sometimes it's a matter of actually having more strength. So we try to maintain that balance between flexibility and strength, and really targeting specific muscles to not only stretch, but also strengthen. Beautiful. Let's bring that heel down. We're going to swing that leg around all the way to the front and come into a cross-legged position. So this time your left shin will be in front of the right, coming into that cross-legged position. Again, we're going to focus on really keeping the torso nice and upright here. Fingertips are in front of you here. And look to keep lifting your torso up and then using the hands to hinge forward. It's not about coming here. It's about staying here and then maintaining that space, maintaining that length as you hinge from the hips and lean forward. And really trying to get that stretch into this part of the body here. Using your fingertips to help pull your chest forward, going as deep as you can. But when you start to feel your spine rounding, start to lose that space, I recommend hanging out there, just breathing. Remember, deeper is not always better. Alignment and experience is what I try to focus on, as opposed to going deeper without awareness. As you inhale, start to press into your fingertips, come back. From here, transition your way into plank all the way back to downward dog. You can complete that transition however you want to. As you come into your downward facing dog, let's lift the left leg up and bend the knee, rotate the hip, and really focus on keeping your shoulders side by side, your chest facing the back wall, and then your hips opening to the side. So not opening the chest as well as the hips, but just the hips open, the shoulders stay neutral. And that you'll find that that left knee reaches higher the more you rotate the hip externally. So really try to feel that thigh bone rotating inside the hip socket. As you drive the right heel down, the left knee reaching higher, breathe here. 3, 2, 1. Inhale, square that hip. Exhale, swing the leg forward. We're almost there. As you bring the back knee down, heel to the left foot to the right edge of the mat. Bringing your left hip, your right knee relaxed on the back. Let's bring that front shin parallel to the top edge of the mat. Fingers offering support on either side of the mat, hinging forward and back. So working on mobility, working on strengthening, stretching, really just functional movement. Really nice work. Come back. Here, we bring our hands on either side of that front foot. You can even bring the fingers together. Again, focus on lengthening and lifting. Take an inhale, lift, and exhale, fold. Again, noticing the difference that you might have between one side to the other. And rather than trying to replicate what you did on the other side or trying to replicate what you felt on the other side, really try to hone in on where you feel this pose on this side. As is often the case, it's not going to be the exact same experience from one side to the other. So you want to try and tailor where you are in this pose, depending on where you feel it. Maybe where you need to send focus a little bit more. Maybe the side that lengthening is a little bit harder. Maybe going deeper is easier. Doesn't matter what the differences are, but just try to have that awareness of your own body. And it might be that you're perfectly balanced and there are no differences, and that's great as well. There's no right or wrong. There's no better side or worse side. This is something that I try to work on in my own practice, is try not to think of my body as having a bad side or a weak side. And try not to think about my body in those types of negative connotations. Just accepting my body for having adapted the way that it has needed to adapt based on my movement patterns, based on my habits. As I come up on an inhale, bringing focus into that back leg, that hip rotating internally, and trying to lift the back foot off the mat. As you drive that knee down on the internal rotation, lift the back foot. Beautiful. Take that leg, swing it around. And you can have a little bit of fun even on the swing along. You can kind of challenge your balance and see if you can keep that leg raised all the way through. Front shin is your right shin this time, sitting cross-legged, getting into that nice stable position where your spine feels long, your chest feels lifted, and then hinging forward from this place, fingers offering support. Look to, you can even use your breath to go deeper. So inhale to lift, exhale to go a little further. Inhale to lift, exhale, go a little further. And keep repeating that until you start to feel like, okay, now you're coming into this position, and then you can pause there. Again, that interplay of the breath and the space inside of us is a constant. You can create space each time you breathe in, no matter where you are, no matter which position the body's in. You can find a little bit more space. And then as you exhale, just release tension to find yourself settling into that space. And then inhale to lift and press back. Transition from here towards your tabletop to plank to downward dog. Finding your flow. This will be the last downward dog for today. spreading across the upper back, shoulders moving up and away from the ears, seat lifting higher as you drive down through the heels, fingers spreading, palms are flat, breathing 3, 2, and 1. Lower the knees onto the mat. Let's shake out the hands. Beautiful. From here, we're going to transition into Malasana, another foundational pose that you want to try to come into as often as you can, definitely once a day. Knees and toes pointing out in the same direction, palms come together. This is one of those primal stances that we found ourselves sitting in for probably a long time. I'd say thousands of years, sitting around fires, cooking like this, defecating like this. And in modern life, we tend to not sit like this. And for a lot of people, including myself, this is an uncomfortable position if you're not used to coming into it. And I find even though I practice coming into it almost daily, still in the morning when I come into Malasana, it just feels like, ooh, I've never done this before. So really getting comfortable in this stance as much as you can with your spine lifted, your chest is upright, you're feeling space, you're feeling comfortable. You can even eventually take your hands up and look for that activation through the glutes to keep yourself from hunching forward, to keep your spine long. And we're gonna transition out of the pose, bringing the hands behind the body. As your seat touches down, take the feet a little wider and windshield wiper. Whew. Releasing the legs, releasing the low back. I feel like a time check is in order here. The sun's come up a lot more than I anticipated. Thank you so much for sticking around. I realize I've gone way over an hour class. So we're going to bring this to a close. Again, my apologies for keeping you from anything that was more important. Bringing your spine to find rest on the mat. Lifting your legs into the chest. Bring the hands onto your kneecaps. And again, keeping your lower back in contact with the mat, we're going to find knee rotations here. So keeping your knees and feet close together, if not touching. Rotating, massaging the back of your sacrum, not letting your tailbone lift off too far off the mat here. And then switching up the direction of the circles. Beautiful. From here, transition to happy baby as you take your knees wide, reach up through the inside of your legs to grab your feet, ankles, shins, whatever you can. Press the arms against the inner thighs, roll your tailbone down, keeping the lower back supported, feet facing up, rocking side to side. Bringing as much activation into your happy baby as you want to, with your arms pushing against the inner thighs, with your hands pulling the knees down towards the floor beside you. Or you can just let it be a fun, easy, and relaxed position, or somewhere in between. Beautiful. Now from here, we're going to transition towards Shavasana. If you feel like you're really craving a particular finishing pose or short sequence, feel free to add that in. But for us, for those of us who are ready to bring the practice to a close, let's take our feet mat width distance apart, maybe a little bit wider if you have the space around you. Let the outer edges of your feet roll out, arms open beside you. Let's start off with the arms open and palms facing up. That helps to open up the chest. And then from here, feel free to modify your Shavasana in any way that you want to. Bending the knees, using a blanket, support, your choice completely. Just make sure that you're feeling comfortable enough to close the eyes. Relax, letting your breath and heartbeat slow down. Letting your body sink a little deeper down into the mat. Everything that you have to do for your practice today is completed. Now you can allow yourself to just be and let go of control over your body, over your breath. And just allow the benefits of your practice to sink in, letting your practice integrate while you rest in Shavasana. And start to bring awareness to your breathing once again. Coming back to the sensations of your breath. Letting your awareness spread through the whole body as you start to move the fingers and toes. That movement travel towards your center. Slide the feet together, pointing your toes, reaching the arms up overhead, stretching the body in opposite directions with your breath in, and releasing yourself into that space as you breathe out. Let's bring your left hand onto the belly button, bending your knees and turning over onto your right side. Keeping the movements relaxed. Maybe pausing to reflect on your practice today. Coming up into a comfortable seat when you're ready, with the eyes closed, with your palms together at chest center. Just taking a moment here. checking in with how it feels to be inside your body. And may the sense of peace and calmness stay with you, nourishing you and all those around you. Thank you. Namaste.